Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and you know what time of week it is. It's Friday. Gotta get down on Friday because it's time for my wrestlers of the week. Throw up them dubs for... I did it wrong. There are no honourable mentions this week because there's not been as much wrestling as usual. Things have been getting called off in Japan, various different shows, and obviously this week as well, AEW was moved from Wednesday to Saturday, so that'll be taken into account for next week. Because of the bloody NBA playoffs, what are they like? Now obviously that means there's been less wrestling to look at, but there has still been some good wrestling, enough for a lovely list of 10 wrestlers of the week. So without any further ado, let's just crack on with it. Let's get in to the top 10. Number 10 this week is a man from up north, but not up north like myself and many of my colleagues here at Cultaholic.com. No, he's from up north on the other side of the pond. And he is none other than Josh Alexander, one half of the tag team, The North, alongside Ethan Page. He was unvictorious this week, if that's even a term, coming up short against those bloody Motor City Machine Guns, who are also from the northern states, actually. It's a real shame that Josh Alexander is only gaining recognition now that, you know, his year-long title reign or tag title reign is over. They had some really good matches, but they were often overshadowed by all the other wrestling that was going on. Now that we've got a bit more of a limited landscape right now, and we've got maybe a little bit of a better product on Impact's part as well, I think he has a chance to really start to shine. This isn't the first time I've been impressed by Josh Alexander, of course it's not, but it's the first time when I'm thinking, let's give him a singles run. And that's not to say that Ethan Page wasn't good in the match too. He of course was. He's kind of the mastermind. Josh Alexander's the bruiser. He's like proper brawny and just running around the ring, taking people out, showing extreme agility as well, and being of course an elite level amateur wrestler. I'm a big fan. I'm pleased that they didn't win the titles back. That would have been a silly booking decision, but I have to say he deserves his 1 point on Wrestlers of the Week. Number 9 this week, let's go to 205 Live, everyone's favourite brand in the WWE. The purple brand, everyone loves it. Time to get down on Friday. Yes, number 9 this week was Jake Atlas, who lost his match on 205 Live, but it was a really fun match, and he is a really fun wrestler, and I wish they would do more with him. Now, obviously, he's a fairly new signing in NXT, but he was a big deal in the California independent scene. He was showing up in PWG and just stealing the show, and I think he's very, very popular locally there, but needs to expand that somehow with the help of some good booking to a more, national or even global level. Now, of course, Atlas showed some promise in the Interim Cruiserweight Championship tournament that NXT had recently, and, I was hoping that they'd build on that and send him a bit further. I understand the WWE has a massive roster at the moment, and everyone kind of cycles in and out, and they can't really shine all of the time unless you're one of the few very top-level wrestlers. But I feel like Jake Atlas really did make the most of his limited opportunity this week on 205 Live, putting in a really good performance, one of the best, just matches of the week, really, but he did lose on 205 Live, so I wasn't going to give him that many points, really, was I? But nevertheless, a strong showing from Jake Atlas, and hopefully he starts to pick up some wins again soon, and hopefully, no offense to 205 Live, hopefully it's on a different brand. I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm going to just end the sentence there. Who would you like to see Jake Atlas face in the future? I can't think of anybody because it's Friday and I want to just have a drink. But leave your thoughts in the comment section down below on that. Well done, Jake Atlas. 2 points for you on this week's Wrestlers of the Week. Number 8, we're heading over to Japan, where a lot of shows were cancelled. Stardom had to cancel some shows a little bit, longer ago. New Japan also had to cancel a pretty big show, and everything's been kind of muddled over there. But one promotion that hasn't had to cancel a show is Tokyo Joshi Pro. And that is where we find this week's number 8, Shoko Nakajima. You might remember the name from her showing up very briefly in AEW on the pre-show of a pay-per-view. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe Fyter Fest, maybe Fight for the Fall. I can't quite remember. She was teaming with Bea Priestley in a tag match on the pre-show anyway, and she was good. She was impressive and very charismatic at the same time. She took on Natsumi Maki this week in the quarterfinals of the Tokyo Princess Cup, which is Tokyo Joshi Pro's tournament, because right now, if you're not doing a tournament, you're not a Japanese promotion, it seems like. It seems like everybody in Japan is doing their tournaments right now. And she won. She got through to the next round, and for my money, having watched those quarterfinal matches, I think it was my favorite of those. I think that, she is who I want to win now because of that, my limited knowledge of the Tokyo Joshi Pro roster, and the fact that I know her, and she had my favorite match of the quarterfinals, means that I'm fully Team Shoko. Go on, Shoko. Do it for me and all the Newcastle boys. What am I talking about? I do hope that Shoko gets brought back into AEW. I don't know why it stopped. I don't know whether it was just a short-term thing anyway, but I hope that she does feature again because she showed tremendous promise. I like her in this singles match. I'd never seen her really, I don't think, in a singles match before. And maybe she was on Dark once. I honestly cannot remember, but I know that AEW are going to have other wrestlers at the sort of forefront of their priorities when they're bringing people back over from Japan, such as, for example, of course, Riho, who hasn't been seen for a while. And also, why did Riho push down Yuka Sakazaki at Fighter Fit? It doesn't matter, I'm going to leave that in the past. Well done, Shoko Nakajima, 3 points for you, and you're on the league table. Number 7, back to that match in 205 Live that Jake Atlas lost, and we're going to talk about his opponent, the victorious heel of the match, Arya Davari. Remember him? The reason I say remember him is because he hasn't wrestled since March, I believe, so it's really nice to see him back in the ring, putting on one of the best performances of the week as well, and picking up the big victory. Now, I know that Sam, during his tenure as our kind of 205 Live guy, was very fond of Arya Davari. I never personally saw it because he was surrounded by people on the roster like Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali, and I didn't really appreciate the idea of a comparatively less flashy heel. But now I've learned that I was being stupid. And that's because I thought, well, I'm saying that, but I liked Drew Gulak when he was in 205 Live, and Davari was being a bit more ostentatious than Drew was, so why can't I get behind him? And I watched this match with an open mind, and I was very impressed indeed by Davari's performance. And yes, being a heel on a brand that features lads doing flips all the time, even though he can do the flips, he has to tone it down slightly because he's the bad guy. It can work to your disadvantage sometimes, but Davari makes it work. He's a true all-rounder. He blends everything from old school heelishness to riling up the crowd to then busting out the occasional very impressive move. And also he's great at just grinding down his opponents and making you really want to see him lose. But he didn't lose this week, of course. He beat Jake Atlas, and I think that's worthy of quite a few points. I'm honestly struggling for further things to say about Davari here because he just had a good showing, didn't he? I like his eyes. He's got lovely eyes. So Arya Davari is in at number 7 on this week's Wrestlers of the Week. But who's next, you ask? It's time to go back to Impact Wrestling and talk about a new champion over there in a pretty shocking booking decision, if I do say so myself. That makes no sense. I didn't book it. Yes, number 6 this week is Rohit Raju, the new Impact Wrestling X Division champion. Why is that shocking? I'll explain if you've not been following Impact. So Chris Bay, up until this week, was relatively, a new X Division champion. He hadn't won the belt long ago. It looked like Impact was throwing everything behind him and giving him a big push because he's a tremendous heel. Now, he's lost the belt to Rohit Raju, and I'm shocked. This came on Impact show this week, part 1 of their kind of 2-week special kind of thing. And it was it was a really good show. It was probably one of the best wrestling shows of the week. Yes, as I've said, there were less shows going on. But one of the big talking points was Rohit Raju's X Division Championship victory, which just came out of nowhere. It was in a triple threat match against both, Chris Bay, the old champion now, and also TJ Perkins. And, you'd think if anyone was going to get the belt in that match, it would be the ex-WWE guy, but no, that was not the case at all. The match was a strange one. Wasn't as high-flying as many X Division matches because TJ Perkins seemed obsessed with putting people in double submissions all the time. Eventually it worked against him, and it was Rohit Raju who was able to scoop the victory with a big Alberto Del Rio double foot stomp off the side while his opponent's conveniently hanging there. And he pinned the champion as well. He didn't just pin the odd man out. I wonder if this will lead to a feud. Will he be a transitional champion to get the belt onto TJ? I don't know, because I didn't think that Chris Bay was going to be a transitional champion either. So I guess it's just an unpredictable time for the X Division at the moment. So very interesting stuff there. Congratulations, Rohit. You're the man. And I'm legitimately very surprised. Number 5 this week, a decision that's less shocking, but one that I still was mildly surprised by. We're going to go and talk about Kenta. Over in the New Japan Cup United States edition, Kenta has reached the finals where he will face David Finlay. Now, I'm surprised. I thought Jeff Cobb was going to beat Kenta, but Kenta beat Jeff Cobb. And in the other semi-final bracket, I thought that Tama Tonga was going to beat Finlay, and then we get Jeff Cobb versus Tama Tonga, and then Cobb would win, essentially. That's what I thought, but Cobb hasn't even made the final, going down to this man, Kenta. Very, very interesting stuff. Shocking stuff, you might say. No, you might not say that because we just talked about a more shocking result, but surprising stuff. And a good match as well. The better of the two semi-finals, in my opinion. Maybe not the match that you'd expect Kenta and Jeff Cobb to be able to put on. There was a sense they were reining it in very slightly, but again, this hasn't been a week with any one massive standout performance, really. But I assume that Kenta's going to beat David Finlay in the final and win the cup and then get a shot against Jon Moxley for the United States belt. I think. I can only guess that's what's going to happen, but the way this tournament's gone so far, maybe it wouldn't be that surprising if David Finlay won the tournament. Still, it was a strong performance from Kenta. Everything you want from Kenta versus Jeff Cobb. Dialed down a little bit though, as I say. Bigger guy versus smaller, evil guy. And Kenta was, giving as good as he got. Yes, he was outmatched in terms of size and strength, but he was firing away with those stiff strikes as he does, and eventually picked up the win. And I feel bad for Jeff Cobb. I thought this was his tournament. But still, should Kenta win and defeat David Finlay, I'm excited for the prospect of Kenta versus Moxley. I really hope it happens whenever it can happen, I assume. And maybe that'll be a match where both guys have a chance at 10 points. But not 10 points this week for Kenta, just 6. You must be ashamed of yourself. Number 4, one of my boys in wrestling. Alex Shelley of the Motor City Machine Guns. I love those two. Yeah, my main reason for really enjoying the Impact show this week was the tag team match between the champions, the relatively new champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, fresh off their shock return, and the North, who I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Josh Alexander. Now, Alex Shelley in this match, it's really hard to separate the Machine Guns when you're talking about them because they both do really well in tag team situations. They're both flying around the ring, using double teams effectively, and taking turns basically being the powerhouse of the team. But I've put Alex Shelley slightly further behind because I feel like it was Sabin who was getting the hot tags in this match and clearing house and effectively driving his team forwards. But that doesn't mean that Shelley wasn't either. He was still very impressive, and it was the right result in the end. The Motor City Machine Guns picking up the victory and keeping a hold of those Impact Tag Team Championships. But I can't spend too long talking about Shelley because next it's, number 3 is Chris Sabin. Let's just switch it now. Let's just talk about Chris Sabin because, again, they work in tandem so well. It's almost like I used to hate ranking the Young Bucks because I always thought, oh, they're so similar. Then I realized that Matt's the more power-based guy, relatively. Nick's the more high-flying guy. Matt often is selling loads. Nick's often the hot tag. I started to learn the difference between Matt's funny, Nick's more weird and crazy. I started to learn Matt looks like Jim Carrey a little bit. Have you noticed this? Anyway, I managed to separate the two when I was watching their tag matches. I struggle more to separate Shelley and Sabin. They might look more different than the Young Bucks do, but they wrestle so in tandem, it's really, really impressive. My absolute dream scenario would be for AEW to go, we'll have those boys, get over here, Sabin and Shelley. But obviously Sabin and Shelley have a loyalty to Impact Wrestling. They are one of the best tag teams in Impact history, maybe the best arguably. And it makes a lot of sense for them to be there. It's kind of their home, isn't it? Nevertheless, the point is, it was a very good match. I enjoyed it. Maybe not as much as the match where they won the belts from the North, but I enjoyed it on a similar level. There wasn't as much drama thinking the North were going to recapture those titles, but it was always, it was always a slim possibility. So well done to Sabin and Shelley for keeping hold of those titles, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I just love them so much. Number 2 this week, we're finally going to WWE's main roster to talk about Shayna Baszler. Shayna picks up 9 points this week for another very impressive tag team performance, looking like a boss against Sasha and Bayley, choking out, getting the submission victory and winning the match for her team, herself and Asuka. Also on SmackDown, she came runner-up in the Tri-Brand Battle Royal. Despite almost dropping Tegan Knox on her head, she saved the day because she's so strong, fair enough. And one thing I disagreed with in that Tri-Brand Battle Royal was the idea that Sasha and Bayley were totally fine with Shayna winning as long as Asuka didn't, and they were trying to, desperately eliminate Asuka or interfere from the outside. Would Bayley not be scared of facing Shayna as well? Yeah, Shayna's career has just hit a wall recently and now seems to be slowly recovering, but she destroyed everyone at Elimination Chamber what feels like 10 years ago. And then she got to WrestleMania and lost to Becky Lynch, of course, and it made no real sense, especially with Becky giving up the belt soon after. I don't know. Apparently Vince just didn't get it. Well, hopefully he's starting to now. There are also these rumours that Shane McMahon could be taking control of Monday Night Raw, and if so, I think Shayna is the sort of person that Shane would... Oh, they've got similar names. I think she's the sort of person that Shane would really enjoy with her shoot MMA style. But anyway, great performance in the tag match. She looked like the absolute boss of the match. She got the result at the end, and I assume it's going to be her and Asuka taking on Bayley and Sasha for those tag belts at Payback next week. God, Payback is so soon. But now we must talk about number 1 and my wrestler of the week. You may have guessed who it is. She's got 2 title shots for herself this week. So, by next week, she could also be number 1 again. We'll see how it goes. It's Asuka. Asuka was great on SmackDown and Raw. She's been just a flurry of relentless activity since the lockdown era, possibly WWE's MVP, not that MVP, most valued, since the lockdown began. And I think she's been just really, really good. On SmackDown, she won that Tri-Brand Battle Royal despite attempted interference from Sasha and Bayley. She landed on their bodies as they were lying on the floor to keep herself in the match. You should have known she was going to do that, guys. She's a former Royal Rumble winner. That got her the title match against Bayley. She already secured the title match against Sasha by beating Bayley on last week's Raw. And then on this week's Raw, she teamed up with Shayna to beat them both again. Now, what's going to happen at SummerSlam with Asuka having 2 matches? You can't escape the feeling that she's going to only win one of the belts, but maybe that would be a good result. Maybe Asuka winning one of the, she's coming in with 0 belts. Leaving with 1 might not be that bad a deal. I think that the worst case scenario would be that she loses both matches, because that wouldn't drive Sasha and Bayley's storyline forwards enough for me. But I feel like she's going to win either 1 or both, probably just 1, so that there's 1 belt left for Sasha and Bayley to feud over when they hopefully eventually turn on each other. And out of the 2, I feel like Sasha's got to be the one who drops the belt, because she's more likely to be the one the crowd gets behind in the feud with Bayley. She needs to be the victim of Bayley abandoning her to leave her to Asuka's wrath. And then, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know. There's been different predictions. Pachi thinks it's going to be the other way around. The cheeky devil. What's he like? It's his birthday today. But anyway, that is all speculation for the future, and it's time to wrap this up. Well done, Asuka. Congratulations to the Empress of Tomorrow. You are my Wrestler of the Week. Now, let's take a look at that league table. Not a lot of change this week on the league table, because there's been so many new faces introduced to Wrestlers of the Week this week. However, as we move a little bit further down, we'll see in 10th position, there is Asuka, leapfrogging a lot of names to become the highest ranking woman so far in 2020, just pipping Io Shirai. But with Shirai as the NXT Women's Champion and a takeover this weekend, she could be back on top in no time. That's about it really for changes at the top. Wow, what a week for the bloody underdogs, eh? And that is it for Wrestlers of the Week this week. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.